This blockade that U.S. Central Command says is going into effect, what does it actually look like in reality? And what will it take for the U.S. Navy to pull it off? Well, first, there's been some confusion about what this actually is. Early on, it sounded like a full shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz, a total blockade. But what we're hearing now is something more targeted, not shutting down the entire strait, but focusing on blocking Iran's ports specifically. That's a very important distinction. So if that's the plan, here's how it works. You're looking at 1 or 2 aircraft carriers in the region to provide air cover, around a dozen major warships, destroyers, cruisers, frigates positioned near Iranian ports. Add to that smaller patrol boats from regional allies like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, and then land-based aircraft to maintain control of the skies. This is a massive, resource-heavy operation. It takes coordination, time, and constant surveillance. The goal here is to hit Iran's economy without completely shutting down global oil traffic. But even then, it's a risky move. And that's where a lot of people are confused. How does blocking Iran help reopen the Strait of Hormuz? It sounds contradictory, but the strategy isn't about closing the strait for everyone. It's about closing it for Iran while keeping it open for the rest of the world. That means 2 missions happening at the same time. First, economically squeeze Iran by cutting off its oil exports. Second, secure and clear the waterway so other countries can continue shipping. But even if everything goes according to plan, there will be cracks in this system. History shows that blockades take time. During the American Civil War, it took years for a naval blockade to truly cripple the opposing economy. The same principle applies here, and Iran still has options. They could deploy more naval mines, use fast attack boats, launch cyber operations, or even target oil infrastructure in the Gulf. So while this blockade increases pressure, it also raises the risk of escalation. From a military standpoint, this is not simple. The Strait of Hormuz is narrow, but it's one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world. Before the conflict, more than 100 ships passed through it every day. Monitoring, identifying, and potentially stopping vessels in that environment is extremely complex. What this will likely look like in practice is constant surveillance, ships, aircraft, and satellites tracking every movement. Communication with vessels will be critical. Ships suspected of heading to Iranian ports could be ordered to stop, reroute, or even be boarded. And if a ship refuses to comply, that's where things can quickly become dangerous. There's also the risk of this move backfiring. Iran could escalate by mining the strait further, using smaller boats for hit-and-run attacks, or launching missiles from the coastline. Even if their navy has taken heavy losses, they still have asymmetric ways to disrupt traffic. Economically, Iran is vulnerable because most of its oil exports depend on these routes, but they're not completely cut off. They still have alternative connections, including routes through the Caspian Sea, which are outside direct U.S. control. At the same time, this affects other countries too. Gulf nations depend on stability in this region, and any disruption puts pressure on them to push for a resolution. In the end, this becomes a test of endurance, a test of who can handle more pressure, Iran facing economic isolation, or the global economy dealing with rising oil prices and uncertainty. This is a high-stakes move. It's designed to create leverage, to force negotiations from a position of strength. But whether it works or triggers something bigger is still uncertain. What's clear is this. The situation is entering a critical phase, and what happens next could shape the region for weeks, if not months.